All right, let's jump right in. According to the source material we're looking at today, something big is happening across Europe. A really rapid, really significant political shift. So we're going to walk through the evidence they present to figure out, what's really going on here.
And the source kicks things off with this really dramatic line. The idea here is that a situation that a lot of people thought was, well, a done deal, is now completely up in the air. It really sets the tone for a story about some surprising and pretty intense changes.
So, the first piece of evidence the source brings up is this recent vote. It's from the EU Parliament, and it's all about a new migrant return regulation. Now, the policy itself is a big deal. The source even compares it to offshore processing. But what's really turning heads is the vote count. I mean, look at that. 389 in favor, 209 against. That's a decisive win. And for an institution like the EU Parliament, that kind of clear-cut result on this issue, well, it signals a pretty major shift in thinking.
So you have to ask, right? What's behind a vote like that? Where did it come from? Well, the source argues it's definitely not happening in a vacuum. They point the finger directly at one thing, a major shift in public opinion.
And this, right here, is really the core argument of the whole piece. The idea is that after about 20 years of certain immigration policies, public opinion has just flipped. The source describes it as a kind of popular movement, with people deciding they want to, and I'm quoting here, want their country and their culture back. And that feeling is apparently so strong it's forcing institutions, even the EU Parliament, to change their tune.
And to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, the source pulls out this one key number. It claims there have been somewhere between 4.5 and 5 million undocumented border crossings into the EU in less than 20 years. That's a huge number, and it's presented as one of the main drivers behind that shift in public opinion we were just discussing.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But how does this all look on the ground, country by country? Well, our source starts us off in Germany, looking at the rise of the Alternative for Germany party. You might know them as the AfD.
So check this out. In a couple of state elections back in March of 2026, the AfD did really well. They grabbed a solid third place in Baden-Württemberg. But the big one, the real headline, was in Rhineland-Palatinate. They got 19.5% of the vote, a new record for the party in a Western German state. That's a key detail.
And why is that so important? Well, historically, the AfD's base, its stronghold, has always been in the former East Germany. The source suggests that's partly because people there have memories of Soviet-era oppression. But these new results, they're from the West. It shows the party is breaking new ground and becoming competitive across the entire country for the first time. That's a game changer for them.
And if you look at the national picture, it gets even more interesting. The source points out that attempts by other parties to actually get the AfD outlawed have all failed. And now, they're polling nationally, quote, at level pegging with the main governing party, the CDU/CSU. So the takeaway here is that the AfD isn't on the fringes anymore. They're becoming real contenders to actually form a government.
All right, so from Germany, we're going to hop over to France, where our source says we're seeing a very similar story play out. This time, the party in the spotlight is the National Rally.
And the big claim here is that the party's new face for the presidential election, Jordan Bardella, is actually leading in the polls for 2027. I mean, that's a massive deal in French politics. And it's not just polling. The source notes they've been building up a real base of power at the local level. They're running something like 60 local councils now. And there's this interesting irony. The establishment parties tried really hard to sideline the party's longtime leader, Marine Le Pen. But according to the source, that move totally backfired. It might have actually helped the National Rally by making room for a new, popular candidate like Bardella to step up.
Okay, for our last stop, the source takes us to the UK. Now, obviously, they're not in the EU anymore, but they're still presented as part of this wider European trend, especially when you look at some recent local election results.
And some of these results are pretty shocking, to be honest. We're talking about the Reform UK Party winning an outright majority in Newcastle, apparently coming from, quote, nowhere. Then in Sunderland, they took 62 out of 75 seats. That's a commanding win. And even in a place like Birmingham, they managed to outpoll both Labour and the Conservatives.
And looking at the bigger picture, the source points to a prediction for the next big wave of council elections, 136 of them. The word used is a bloodbath for the Labour Party, who are apparently expected to lose more than 1,000 seats. This is all being framed as more proof that a major political shakeup is underway.
So, let's pull all these threads together. You've got that big EU Parliament vote, you've got what's happening in Germany, in France, and in the UK. The picture the source is painting is pretty clear. A continent going through a huge and very fast political change.
And the story the source tells follows a very clear A to B to C logic. It starts with specific immigration policies over the last couple of decades. That's the cause. The effect? A rapid shift in public opinion. And the result of that? The rise of these new political parties and, as we saw with that EU vote, a real change in policy.
And this all leads to the final, really thought-provoking question that the source leaves us with. If all of this has happened so fast, if the ground has shifted this much already, it makes you wonder, right? What on earth is Europe going to look like in just another 2 years?